Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel once again, and this is going to be another wrestling review. So, it's very rare, at least for the most part, or where I should preface it by saying, and of course I enjoy the majority of the matches is in events I review, but none have quite got me as excited to talk about them as this one. I am talking, of course, about Survivor Series Wargames 2023 from last night, and man, what a time! Man, oh man, what a time! I realize I'm not a professional wrestling reviewer analyst, just a man who enjoys a good time, which I definitely had. I'd probably even go as far as to say this might be the event of the year, or perhaps. This is a strong contender for event of the year, at least in terms of WWE. But why is that the case? Let's find out. If you've seen these reviews of mine before, you kind of already know how this works. If you haven't, going to be talking what I liked and what I disliked about the matches and the event, and we're going to go match by match. So starting off with the women's War Games match, and I'm also going to try to compare them and contrast them to my predictions that I did yesterday for System Shock Radio. If you haven't already, go check out that episode from yesterday. Starting with the women's War Games match, and it's pretty cool how both the women's and men's War Games how a War Games match started the show and then ended off the show. But nevertheless, we have the Women's War Games match as Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch seek to battle Damage Control. Damage Control is united with some new member. Kairi Sane and Asuka have been added to the mix, obviously stemming back from what happened at Crown Jewel, and they've joined forces with Damage Control here, and they're officially a part of it, at least if this wiki's to be believed. And then and they talked about it on Raw to take the pressure off of Bayley. At least that's what they've said. But meanwhile, Bianca has assembled some other women to fight alongside her, that being Shotzi, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch. And right off the bat, I guess they decided to go with the 4-on-4 after all for the women, and instead of bumping it up to 5-on-5 like the men got. But still a really fun match. This match was just a lot of fun. What I've noticed is when it's a special event kind of like this, with a special match stipulation like War Games or the Royal Rumble or like Elimination Chamber, normally the men's storyline usually has a bit more of the storytelling. Meanwhile, the women's are usually just a lot of fun. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Obviously, the women have some storytelling as well, and we'll get into that. But the women's matches are usually just, especially like when it's a stipulation like this, are usually just a lot of fun. And this match was a lot of fun. And so, they did the whole storyline of can they coexist, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch, and they mentioned on commentary the last time Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch were in the same match, whether facing off against each other or just in general, was back at Survivor Series of 2021. So 2 years ago, where they fought, what they did, brand versus brand for Raw and SmackDown Women's Championships, and Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch legitimately hated each other. Hopefully, it's more under the bridge now. How I'm hoping, but yeah, there's that, and this match was just like I said, quite a bit of fun. And some of the highlights include a funny moment with Kairi Sane, the crowd, which the crowd in Chicago were electric all night long. Like, the Chicago crowd is definitely they're a very vocal crowd. They kind of do remind me almost of like a Philly crowd, especially in that like ECW main, where the Chicago crowd was electric all night long. Now, partially that might have something to do with some stuff that happened in the main event, and we'll definitely get to that. But yeah, the crowd was electric all night long. They wanted tables. Kairi Sane didn't pull out the table. She instead pulled out a trash can lid, and the fans booed it. Eventually, the table was brought in. I believe it was I believe it was Becky Lynch who brought in the table. It was either her or it might have been Bianca. But yeah, so the table was brought in, and two dives, not one but two dives off the top of the cage. Io Sky, I put the trash can on herself and dove onto everybody, which of course not the first time she's done that. But then Charlotte Flair decided she would also moonsault off the top of the cage. So those were fun there. Bayley really being the MVP of this match, trying to do as much as she could. She ultimately ate the pin, but she tried to help out her fellow Damage Control stablemates as much as she could, including taking the bullet or I believe it might have been Kairi Sane. I forget exactly, but taking the spear from Charlotte, so Bayley took the bullet there, but then ultimately Bayley taken out by the opposing team, including what ended off the match, the manhandle slam from the top rope in through the aforementioned table. Also, Bianca and her team picking up the win there. Her really putting the nail in this is beating Damage Control here. Now, can we please stop having these two feud? Now, granted, of course, I love Damage Control. I love everyone on Bianca's team. Bianca, Charlotte, Shotzi, and Bayley. Not Bayley, Becky Lynch, but like having the same people feud over and over again does get a little tiring at times. But hopefully especially now that this could lead into the potential Bayley being exiled from Damage Control storyline, and I do just want them to move on in terms of feud. Not the last time I'll be saying that on the show though. But next up was the Intercontinental Championship match as Gunther defended against The Miz and defended successfully. The Miz, unfortunately, not able to get the job done, but still looked really good in defeat. And I mentioned this for not just this, but the other championship match, which we'll get to, where even if they don't pick up the win, at least have them look good and look strong in defeat. And The Miz definitely did that, using a lot of his veteran instincts, really taking it to Gunther, including targeting his leg, some kind of dirty cheating spots. Such a face. But the crowd definitely were into it. The Miz, as Gunther was locking the sleeper in on The Miz taking off the turnbuckle padding, and then low blowing Gunther not once but twice. The first time they said he kicked him in the knee, but then the second one was more of a low blow. The Miz really taking it to Gunther and really working him, including even a figure four around the turnbuckle along Gunther. Gunther ultimately picking up the win with the Boston Crab into what they called it just the Boston Crab with the knee in the back, but maybe that's the Lion Tamer, or not exactly the Lion Tamer. I think Jericho more so does it towards the head, but Gunther definitely more into the back, or shoot. Well, I kind of think of how the Lion Tamer is done at this moment in time, but nevertheless, The Miz does tap out, so Gunther ultimately victorious, but The Miz still looking really strong in defeat, which is fantastic. Even if you don't have him win the match, you still made him a credible threat. Gunther really looked like he sweated, at least, not really physically, but, mentally, against The Miz, and The Miz still looked really good against Gunther, so got the job done on that front. So, congrats to Gunther as he continues his Intercontinental Championship reign. I wonder where he goes from here as Intercontinental Champion, but also, you make The Miz look really good. He does, even I did mention, of course, the cheating and stuff, but he still does win the crowd over, and the crowd is definitely into him and kind of, for the most part, buying him as a babyface. Like the thing about The Miz is he's a great heel, but he does have potential as a babyface. It's something that never really realized in the twice that they've tried to turn him face. The one time in 2013 and then the other time in 2019. There's potential there for a face run for The Miz, making him a bit more endearing, making him realize his cheating tactics aren't really doing it for him, and I guess trying to, and I think I mentioned this before when I first talked about The Miz turning face, but really trying to beat himself, the more cocky, arrogant heels, such as Gunther. But we'll see what they go. We'll see where they go with it from there. But yeah, so Gunther picking up the win there. Then next Dragon Lee looks to get some measure of revenge and for the LWO, for both Rey Mysterio and Carlito, as he goes up against Santos Escobar. And man, Santos Escobar, him just look. Don't get me wrong. The LWO was cool and everything. If not, wish they would go a little bit more with that. But man, Santos is just a fantastic heel. Like, honestly, this might be bold. Well, this might be a very bold claim, and if you disagree with this, that is perfectly fine. If done right, he could be like the second top heel behind Roman, especially with Roman taking some time off. And I think I mentioned this when I did my Survivor Series predictions from yesterday's episode of System Shock Radio. But yeah, Santos going against Dragon Lee, ultimately picking up the win in there. Just some fun action throughout. Ultimately, Santos even ripping against the mask of Dragon Lee. It's pretty much like a rule of thumb. If you're a luchador with a mask, that mask is getting ripped at one point or another. It happened to Ray. It happened to Penta. At least with Penta, they took his all the way off. Did the Young Bucks. But yeah, if you're a luchador with a mask, that's getting ripped off. But yeah, so Santos ultimately also winning with the Phantom Driver. Big win for Santos here, and Dragon Lee still looking really solid even in defeats. And I can't wait to see what they do with Santos's character moving forward. Really establish him as that next level big heel on SmackDown. Like they can definitely do it with him because he has the charisma and he has the talent to pull it off. So just book him strongly. Like as a heel, like have him go on a tear, have him beat Rey Mysterio. Yeah, I'd even go as far as to have him take the U.S. title off of Logan Paul. But yeah, Santos with a big win there. Then next up, for the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley defended against Zoe Stark. So Zoe Stark won the Battle Royal on Raw earlier in the month, and so now we'll be battling Rhea Ripley here. The story kind of going into it is, where is Rhea Ripley's head at? Because she is the champion, of course, but she's also dealing with the dissension and the Judgment Day between Finn Balor and Damian Priest, or Damian Priest and JD McDonough, or Finn Balor and JD McDonough even. So and her being pulled in all these directions. Now Drew McIntyre's in the fray. So is Rhea's head all the way there, and will Zoe Stark be able to capitalize on it and take the title? Spoiler alert, she does not, but she still looks really good for the most part in this match. Ultimately, he almost nailing the Z360 on Rhea Ripley, but ultimately not really the case. Zoe getting a decent amount of offense in, but ultimately falling to the Riptide, and that pin from Rhea Ripley. That pin, which she's done before, but that pin, man. Anyway, yeah, so Rhea Ripley picking up the win against Zoe Stark there. But then next up, in your main event of the evening, the Men's Wargames match, as the Judgment Day, that being Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dirty Dominic Mysterio, and JD McDonough join forces with Drew McIntyre, who the only reason he's here is because he has been guaranteed a chance to be locked in the cage and get vengeance on the man who cost him back at Clash of the Castle. Jey Uso will battle against Jey Uso, as well as Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes, Seth freaking Rollins, and Randy Orton, ? Because the story they told throughout the night is that Randy Orton hadn't yet arrived at the arena. They're questioning where he is. Jay blaming himself, saying it's my fault. Randy's not here. I put him on the shelf. I knew he wouldn't want to team with me. So really getting inside his own head, like doubting himself. But Cody keeps ensuring that he's gonna be here. He's gonna be here. Don't worry. And eventually, all four men do walk out. Still no Randy. So they decide to start without him. And of course, Judgment Day do have the advantage. And this is also another fun match as well. as fun as the women's. In terms of action, not quite, but this was still a lot of fun. There was a lot of cool, interesting spots here between the two sides. Eventually, Randy Orton does show up. At first, it's like a bait and switch because they do the countdown. Then nobody's there because Randy Orton's supposed to be the last person in because the Judgment Day had the advantage due to Drew McIntyre being Jey Uso on Raw. He gained the advantage. Then Rhea Ripley comes out with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Hey, so Damian Priest gonna cash in, but then Randy Orton's music hits and out comes the Viper. And man, he looks really good. Like, he is in some really fantastic shape, is Randy Orton. But he comes out. Ultimately, he is a part of the match. Actually, he did decide to answer Cody's call. Also, Randy's now in the match. Not saying not saying it was a deal breaker that he didn't. It just would have been kind of funny. It would have been kind of funny if he RKO'd Rhea Ripley. Like, he's done it. Look, I know that sounds bad. I know that sounds bad, but he's done it before, and people do want at least some level of intergender wrestling. WWE's done it before. I know WWE doesn't really do that because apparently they made the promise to Mattel. Mattel said, if you do intergender wrestling or intergender spots, we will stop sponsoring you. And WWE did it anyway, and Mattel still makes WWE action figures, so I guess that was a bluff. But yeah, nevertheless, Randy does come in, and of course the match does begin, and really just picks up from there, including a really awesome spot where JD is pushed off the cage into a waiting RKO onto Randy Orton. That was all kinds of fun. What was also fun was all 5 men on a Cody's team, that being Cody, Jay, Sammy, Randy, and Seth, all hitting the draping DDTs like Randy does, as that was also pretty cool. Ultimately, he in another spot with ultimately another spot with Randy about to potentially RKO Jey Uso before Jey. He nails Damian Priest, who was coming with the super kick, and then Randy hits the RKO on Dom, and then ultimately it ending. So if it ended off that JD McDonough spot, I think that would have been a satisfying end. But instead, Randy tells Cody, "You got it," as Cody hits Priest with the Crossroads, and then Cody gets the win there as he and his team celebrate a fantastic match. Still a lot of fun. Like I said, it maybe not quite as fun, at least in terms of action, as the women's match, was still really awesome. Cody and everybody celebrating. And then Cult of Personality plays. Is the crowd, like I mentioned, the crowd was electric all night. They cheered when Randy came out. Like, they popped when Randy came out and was revealed to actually be there and be the 5th man. And they popped when Cody's team won. But when Cult of Personality hit, the crowd lost it. Like they popped huge. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin, eat your heart out. Like, the crowd popped huge, and the man himself, the man of the hour, as you can see by my sweater here, CM Punk walked out. The crowd was super into it. Like, they were chanting his name throughout the night. So I guess it truly was a case of those boos being their way of conserving, like, no, wait for tomorrow night Survivor Series when CM Punk actually comes out. And he did. The crowd was electric. CM Punk celebrated with the crowd. It was just awesome. CM Punk looked great. Like, you can tell he's definitely been hitting the gym. And they say he looks younger than what he did in AEW. So CM Punk is back in WWE, and they confirmed CM Punk is going to be there. I think they say he signed a 3-year deal, so CM Punk's going to be there for a while. Not everyone was happy, though, apparently. Drew McIntyre stormed out of Survivor Series. There's conflicting reports saying that he did it before CM Punk came out, and there's also reports saying the talent knew that CM Punk was coming out, which does also murky this next part, because Seth was Seth was especially upset, having like going off on CM Punk, dropping all kinds of expletives, pretty much having to be held back by Michael Cole and Corey Graves, and Sami Zayn, and there was a follow-up report saying he has to be escorted out of the arena by Triple H, after Seth apparently wanted to visit CM Punk, and I imagine he wanted to visit CM Punk the same way Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks wanted to visit CM Punk after All Out last year. But yeah, so people are trying to figure out, was it a work, was it a shoot? Dude, the waters are still a little bit muddy there, but nevertheless, as CM Punk's return was, as more details emerged, apparently it was on a need-to-know basis. He hadn't even signed pen to paper until that morning, apparently. He had a conversation with Triple H. Triple H brought him in saying, this is a fresh start, this is a new beginning for CM Punk in WWE. And people did bring up CM Punk's bad-mouthing in WWE in his time away, but I guess water under the bridge for now. CM Punk is back, and I'm excited. People are excited. He's going to be at Raw in Nashville. But something else that does need to be addressed is that, of course, with moments like this, then people did try to turn this into another WWE versus AEW kind of thing. Granted, yes, CM Punk was in AEW, who then left under these controversial circumstances, getting into this fight with Jack Perry at All In. And so now CM Punk is back, and obviously, like, people trying to say, oh, this is the death of AEW, AEW's over, stuff like that, and the AEW fans like, oh, we didn't want him anyway, we got other talent, we got Will Ospreay. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. CM Punk being back is exciting. And obviously, he does have his history of kind of getting into trouble and things like that. And granted, not everything that he got in trouble for was necessarily his fault, but with him kind of being the common denominator in almost everything, that is something to keep in the back of your mind. It is somewhat bittersweet, especially with potential talent being upset had CM Punk being there, especially Rollins. Of course, CM Punk and Seth Rollins were friends at one point, had a falling out, unfortunately, and still some bad blood there. Hopefully that does get resolved. If they decide they want to do CM Punk versus Seth Rollins as a feud, hopefully they can resolve those issues and get past them. And believe it or not, it's happened before. It's happened with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It's happened, allegedly it happened between Hogan and Macho Man, and it's happened all kinds of times. So hopefully that can happen here, and CM Punk and Seth Rollins, if they want to work together. If they want to be kept apart, that's on them, of course, but hopefully they can work past their issues, and even if they're not necessarily friends, at least be on friendlier terms. Although Seth Rollins not really being in the know, I think does kind of put a damper on it. So WWE is going to be interesting with CM Punk here, but I also do think AEW might be just fine. And I talked about this in my Is This the End of AEW episode we did for 130 last week. I think there are some changes that need to be made. There are some things that need to be addressed, such as Collision apparently happening at the same time as Survivor Series, which, but I think if they send things towards a upward trajectory, that being AEW, I think they'll be just fine. They still do have plenty of talent. They still do have Switchblade. They have Will Ospreay. Like, Will Ospreay still signed with AEW, so he's still part of the roster. There's still plenty of people that people like in AEW I do still want AEW to succeed. Hopefully they can get past that, but I think they'll be just fine without CM Punk. And I don't want them to like dwell on it or really be hampered too much by it. It did happen, and it did happen in its controversial circumstances, but there are things still going on. AEW still is, like, they're still doing shows, they're still selling tickets, they still have some storylines that people are still invested in. And so I think AEW, who other than what I've talked about, not just kind of here, but also in that previous episode. As long as AEW keeps with that, I think they'll be just fine. But WWE, this is going to be interesting. But man, what a time to be a pro wrestling fan! Like, hey, whether you like WWE, whether you like AEW, whether you like other promotions, whether you like both, whether you like neither, or, definitely a very interesting time to be a pro wrestling fan. I want to see what they do with CM Punk and WWE, and I do think once they turn some things around, AEW will be just fine. But nevertheless, that's going to do it for this review. Man, what a time! Just what a time! What a time! If I did have to pick the strongest and weakest matches of the night, the strongest definitely the two War Games matches were a lot of fun. If I did have to pick the weakest match of the night, though, only by proxy, only by association, compared to everything else, I'd probably go with Santos and Dragon Lee and Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark. Everything, but even those matches were still pretty good. It's just everything else really overshadowed it. Definitely a hell of a show. Like I said, maybe show of the year contender, perhaps. But nevertheless, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as it drops. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the event and on Survivor Series. Did you like to select Survivor Series? Did you like to select my review of Survivor Series? And are you excited to have CM Punk back, as well as Randy Orton? And R-Truth! R-Truth was in the Ruffles commercial. Well, R-Truth went down with an injury last November, and now he's back. Man, 3 returns in one night. Hey, and kind of somewhat unrelated, but do you think, now that CM Punk's back, do you think AJ Lee will come back? Like, hopefully so, because, man, I've definitely missed her. But, nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.